Hello and welcome to my May wrap up. So when I did my TBR video, which is the last video I posted, I had originally picked out 10 books to choose from this month, and I read 8 books total, but only 4 of them were the ones from that TBR pile. So I ended up reading 4 books that I had not originally planned on reading. My wrap up is going to be a little bit different this month. I want to try this new idea, where as I was reading, I found short excerpts that kind of give a good overview of maybe like how the plot starts, or a good overview of the writing style, or like problematic issues that I had with it. And they'll just give you kind of an idea of what the writing is like. So we're going to start with my 5-star reads. The only book that I rated 5 stars, as I'm looking at my little tracker here, was I finally finished Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. While J.K. Rowling is problematic, and the books themselves do have some problems in them, there's a lot of fat shaming, which as a bigger girl, I am not behind that. There's also just a lot, like, there's other problematic issues in there besides fat shaming, but that's the one that stands out the most to me as I reread them. But I will never rate these anything other than 5. Chamber of Secrets is not my favorite. I don't like Dobby. I just find him annoying in general. But it's still, I mean, I couldn't rate them any other way at this point. It's too ingrained in my brain this way. So I would find it very difficult to change that. So that's my only 5-star read. I did not get any excerpts from that. However, I will say that Tom Riddle mentions that Hagrid kept werewolf cubs under his bed, and I thought that was a really cute idea, and I would like more information about Hagrid and what his life was like and what the different animals he raised were. I think that'd be really fun. And I started Prisoner of Azkaban, but I've not finished it. I'm only 5 chapters in, so that will be for June. Okay, 4-star reads. So, I have 2 4-star reads on here, and they are both books from my original TBR. So, let's start with the one that I read first, which is The Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag, which is one of the books that I had gotten from my work library that I will need to return. So this is a book, again, about a family of supernatural beings. I don't know. The women are witches. Well, you know what? Here, I'll just do this. I will read the excerpt that I selected because it kind of gives backstory about this family. So, our main character's name is Aster. He is our witch boy, and he's talking to his mom, Holly. So his mom says, "Women and men have different types of magic, and witches pass down their knowledge from mother to daughter. That's how it is and how it's always been, my son. But it's not like there's nothing for you. Soon your shape-shifting will begin, and with it, the ability to see demons and to fight them. You'll be one of the men." So I thought this was kind of just the best scene to kind of overview of the family. So there are very specific gender roles in this family that obviously Aster does not want to abide by. He does not feel called to the shape-shifting. He has yet to kind of meet the animal spirit that would let him shapeshift, and he's much more interested in doing the witch spells, and he can do them, and yeah, so he struggles within his family having these very specific ideals for him. Okay, this is again Holly, and this is a little bit later in the book. It kind of identifies like what the main issue is that we're dealing with in this book. Something is taking our boys. Something that sneaks through our boundaries and evades us at every turn. It may be an animal spirit, but what would its motivation be? It may be a demon we've never encountered before. We need to stay on our guard. We need to find out how this monster is getting to us and where it's keeping our boys. I refuse to believe they're not alive. So this is kind of the main issue that's happening in this book. So besides the fact that Aster wants to be a witch and his family is not letting him, he wants to really help because his cousins have been taken, the other boys who have been able to shapeshift. He's dealing with his own issues during this time, also wanting to be useful and not finding shapeshifting to be the way that he could be useful. So this is a 4-star read for me. I really liked the art in it. I liked the story, but I oftentimes find that with graphic novels, I wish it was just a book, because I feel like you get so much more information with a book. So I want to keep reading this series because I want to learn more. I am curious about the demons, and obviously we're looking at this from a young boy's perspective. He's not hunting demons yet, so a lot of the world has not been revealed in this one. But I would recommend this one. I think it's cute, and it does have a really good message in it about finding your way in life and accepting people for who they are and believing them when they tell you who they are. So that's book number 2 of 8. My second 4-star read was Aristotle and Dante Discovered the Secrets of the Universe. This was another book that I borrowed from my school library that I need to return. I didn't know what this really was going into it. I did know with the Stonewall Book Award there was LGBTQ, and I believe I knew that Aristotle and Dante have a relationship. I'm trying not to spoil things, but hopefully you've read this. I thought it was really powerful. It was very interesting. It's a perspective that I don't have in my own life, so I do like to read from persons of color, writers of color, and also LGBTQ community, because that's not my own experience. So it helps me understand and, be an ally. A couple things that I didn't like about this. When I first looked at it, and I think I said in my TBR video that I was like, oh, this is going to be like a really fast read. It was a really fast read. I read it all in 3 days, but the majority of it I read in 1 day. Like I think it's, what is it, like 350-ish pages, and I read probably like 200 of that in 1 day. So it's a really quick read, and I liked that it's a contemporary, so that does make sense. Like you don't need a lot of world building or anything. It just takes place in the contemporary world. But the problem that I had was the dialogue. I don't know. It just was super fast. I don't know how to explain this, but the structure of it, I just didn't really like that way. And the dialogue, while it makes sense that like it's not a lot of like he said and Dante said and Aristotle said back and forth together, it's just lines of dialogue, and that's not something that I've read recently. But so I read this one, and then I read my next book that I'll talk about, and it was just like very clear to me that this book was hard to read because it went so fast that like I was like confusing who was talking, and yeah, I don't know. So my first excerpt is fairly recently after they've met. Dante and Aristotle meet at a swimming pool. Aristotle does not know how to swim, and Dante says that he'll teach him. And then they kind of end up hanging out every day. It's summer in Texas, so they spend a lot of time swimming. And one day they are talking after stopping at a 7-Eleven and getting some snacks. And they're talking about Mexican nicknames. And they're talking about Dante's mom's nickname. Why does it bother you so much? I don't know. It's weird. Is that the word of the day? He laughed and downed some peanuts. Does your mother have a nickname? Lily. Her name's Liliana. That's a nice name. So is Soledad. No, not really. How would you like to be named Solitude? It can also mean lonely, I said. See? What a sad name. I don't think it's sad. I think it's a beautiful name. I think it fits your mom just right, I said. Maybe so, but Sam is perfect for my dad. Yeah, What's your dad's name? Jaime. I like that name. His real name's Santiago. Dante smiled. See what I mean about the nicknames? It bothers you that you're Mexican, doesn't it? No. I looked at him. Yes, it bothers me. I offered him some of my payday. He took a bite. I don't know, he said. Yeah, I said, it bothers you. You know what I think, Ari? I think Mexicans don't like me. That's a weird thing to say, I said. Weird, he said. Weird, I said. So this is a fairly typical conversation between the two boys. And I really like it because I think it gives interesting backsight into Dante that until this point we hadn't really gotten. Aristotle, we're in his brain. We know that he's got a lot of anxiety, a lot of like, he's very unsure about his role in the world, his role as a Mexican, and we don't get as much insight from Dante. And so it was really nice to kind of like see his character start to get fleshed out. So the next one is more about the LGBTQ aspect of this book. And so this is another conversation between the boys, and for reasons, they were separated for a little while, and so they're meeting up again for the first time in a while. So we start with Dante. I know. Are there going to be rules for us, Ari? Rules? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I guess I do. So, what are the rules? I don't kiss boys. Okay, so the first rule is no trying to kiss Ari. Yeah, that's the first rule. And I have a rule for you. Okay, that's fair. No running away from Dante. What does that mean? I think you know what it means. Someday, someone will walk up to you and say, why are you hanging out with that queer? If you can't stick by me as a friend, Ari, if you can't do that, then maybe it's better that you just, it will kill me. You know it would kill me if you, then it's a question of loyalty. Yes. I laughed. I have a harder rule to follow. He laughed too. He touched my shoulder, then smiled. Bullshit, Ari. You have the harder rule to follow? Buffalo shit. Coyote shit. All you have to do is be loyal to the most brilliant guy you've ever met, which is like walking barefoot through the park. I, on the other hand, have to refrain from kissing the greatest guy in the universe, which is like walking barefoot on hot coals. I see you still have the barefoot thing going on. I'll always hate shoes. So this was, again, the first meeting where they've seen each other for a while, and Dante's kind of coming to terms with his own sexuality. They're making these rules for each other that, I don't know, I just find this but the friendship so interesting. I can't think of any contemporary books that I read with boys or men as the main character. That's just on me, like I just haven't read any. And so like reading about Harry and Ron's friendship is totally different because they're like in an adventure series or in a magic series, fantasy series, I guess. But it's just very different than like how close Dante and Aristotle are, and how they really do rely on each other as just like friends. I don't know. This is weird, but maybe you'll get it. Maybe you've read it. Maybe it's my own opinion. I don't know. What I will say is, as I was reading, maybe you felt the awkwardness of not having the guidelines. I don't know how this would really work. I guess you would have to read like if this is an audiobook, there'd have to be two people doing the voices, or you'd have to do two different voices for them. I feel like it'd be even more confusing. But it just was like, I'd have to like back up a couple lines and figure out who was talking. And it was really good. I cried a little bit at the end. It was really sweet. Yeah, so 4 stars, yes. Okay, so my 3-star read, I have 2, and I'm gonna start with my other book that was on my list was Nyxia. This is my other one from my school library. This is one that was recommended to me, but that I had no idea what it was about. And it's the story of Emmett Atwood, who is a boy from Detroit who's selected in a lottery with 9 other teenagers to go on board a spaceship and travel to a distant planet and mine a substance, and in return he will be getting lots of money and he will get medical benefits, which is important to him because his mother has cancer. I read this immediately after reading Aristotle and Dante because I was concerned about getting them all done in time to return them to the school. And it was a challenge. I had to really really pay attention to what I was reading because it's a sci-fi novel. It's got a lot of like explanation, there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of world building in it that's not there in Aristotle and Dante, and so I found the transition between the two pretty challenging. I will say I read this in 3 days. It was really good. I read it 150 pages or 170 pages each sitting and finished it rather quickly. The reason I gave it 3 stars though is because, first of all, it's very clearly the beginning of a trilogy, which means it doesn't feel wrapped up. Like, we don't even get to the planet that they've talked about by the end of this book. I found some of the plot points kind of annoying, and I do want to finish the series. I realized as I was reading it or looking at it after that Marie Lu has a quote on the front, and Victoria Schwab has a quote on the back. So I saw on Goodreads that Marie Lu also gave this 5 stars. So I'm curious to see what the rest of the series looks like. It's interesting, but also feels like the substance of Nyxia, that is the substance they're going to mine, can do anything, which is just kind of like, oh, here's a problem where how are we gonna do this? Well, we'll just use Nyxia. You can use Nyxia for anything basically, and I'm just like, oh, well, that's kind of a little hand wavy of you, but okay. So yeah, it was good. My first excerpt is when we're in the very first chapter. We're in the meeting of finding out what are they here for. So there's 10 teenagers and we are in the mind of Emmett. So this just gives a little bit of backstory. We watch as the screen divides into a series of images. We see humanoids in a vast primitive landscape. They're shorter and stockier than your average human. Their eyes look wider and fuller. Defoe smiles triumphantly, but I've seen way better photo factories online. Naturally, we've had a few encounters with the species. Defoe presses an invisible button, and a video widescreens. We have a zoomed-out shot of mostly military types, some scientists. They're sporting high-tech gear, including kill-call-style assault rifles. We watch the negotiations go wrong. Very wrong. Shadows stretch and obscure the so-called Adamites. Shots are fired, but in the chaos and smoke, every soldier ends up dead or dismembered. The Adamites spare only one of the interlopers. A girl, maybe 7 or 8. Defoe hits pause. Jacqueline Reintgen. She was born on the first flight to Eden. Our satellites indicate she's still alive. Why? The Adamites revered children and young people. They kept her alive because she represents something lost to them. Currently, the youngest member in their society is 21 years old. While they are a long-lived species, it appears they are unable to reproduce now. As such, they adore and treasure children. It is that adoration that has provided us the opportunity for this endeavor. He reaches in his pocket and pulls out a marble. It's pitch black. Shades darker than the thumb and forefinger he has it pinched between. Meet Nyxia. With a quick manipulation, the substance stretches. Defoe's hands dance. After a moment, he holds it up. A black-bladed dagger. He allows us all a good look at the knife, flips his grip, and throws it at a target to his right. It buries itself up to the hilt. Not a bad trick. But he's not done. With another hand motion, he draws the substance back across the room into his palm. He holds the marble up for us to see. Not a bad trick at all. Babel Communications has found a number of ways to use the substance. It has secretly become the most valuable resource in the world. Our mission is to harvest as much of this material as possible. Can anyone guess where one might find vast deposits of Nyxia? Eden, we all think. All right, Defoe, you have our attention. A touch from his thumb replaces the video with a digitally scanned map of the planet. So this kind of explains what they're going after, where they're going. It's a different planet outside of the solar system. What I will say is, so he says photo factories, and it's also listening to music. It's like old school hip hop, but we're in the year 2020. What? It doesn't actually say the year, but we're 36 years outside of. 2036 is when Babel Communications bought Google. So we're sometime after that. And on to space travel, we've landed on Mars, lots of stuff has happened. But for some reason, like, a lot of the technology seems to be more from our era. I don't know about that. The other thing that I'll say is there's a lot of people of color in this, and that's because the author used to be a teacher, and he dedicated this book to those kids that kind of felt like they would never amount to anything. The kids that sit in the back row, and specifically it seems to be for like the kids that were the people of color that that were his minority students. My second excerpt is from a little bit further in. We are on the ship, we've done some training, we've met the other kids, and we get our first hint that everything is not as it seems. Azima asks a good question. Kaya's voice is so quiet that it silences every other conversation. I did, Azima replies. What are they preparing us for? Kaya's eyes are lost in calculation. The Nyxia tasks make sense. They're preparing us to use the substance we have to gather. I'd imagine it could be reduced into a certain form that's easier to transport into space. And swimming, that means there will be rivers or oceans. The rabbit room is either to keep us in shape or to prepare us for running from place to place. But why are they having us fight? Didn't you see what happened to the Marines in that video? I asked. Jazzy makes a face. But we don't have to fight them. Mr. Defoe said that Adamites like us. We're their welcome guests. Maybe there are other species, Bilal suggests. Maybe we have to fight those. Every action has a motive, Kaya says firmly. I know the next task, too. We haven't learned how to mine the substance. That's coming next. We got our hint that something's not quite the way it seems. And then further still, like another 100 pages in, Emmett's talking to his dad and his friend on a video call, and he gets another hint that something is afoot. Not that, PJ, I say. The other thing. What are the Babel files? An article, Pops answers. Haven't they shown you the article? No, I shrug. We're in space. Oh man, he says, clapping his hands together excitedly. It's pretty cool. There's a whole page about you. They snagged your last yearbook photo and interviewed some teachers. My mind's spinning. There's an article about me? Yeah, you and all the other recruits. It was kind of cool. You always talk about these kids, and now I know what they look like, you know? Gave me a face to go with the stories you always tell. I see what you mean about that Longway kid. But, PJ interrupts, not one mention of the most excellent brothers? For shame, man. That was our time to shine. I expect name drops in future interviews. I laugh again. But who published it? Pops opens his mouth to respond, but as his lips move, the sound cuts. I hear a bass vibration and then a little high-pitched whine. His voice patches back, scrambles, and mutes a second time. After 30 seconds of interference, I jump up and open the door. Hey, I call to the nearest techie. Sound isn't working. So, what would happen if you are light years, months away from your home, and you don't know what's happening back down there? It doesn't say really how often he gets to talk to his family, but they don't really get to talk about anything having to do with, I mean, he talks about what's going on in the competition, but nothing like really about what's going on at home. So I don't know. I would never travel to space, but it's just, yeah. There's something definitely, and even in this book, we still don't really get like what is happening, which is like kind of another reason that I gave it 3 stars. Maybe as a series, it would be higher, but I haven't read the other ones yet. I want to read the other ones, but as a book on its own, like, it's interesting, but hand-wavy, a little confusing with the technology, and really, yeah, it's just, that first book's supposed to really, like, get you into a series, and I feel like it it didn't really do that. My other 3-star read. So this is one of the books that I ended up getting. The other 4 books that I ended up accidentally reading are graphic novels as well. And I just read them because they were easy to read and I didn't have to think very much while I was doing it. Oh no, I guess, yeah, the next 3. So my other 3-star read is Bitch Planet Volumes 1 and 2 by Kelly Sue DeConnick, I want to say. This was recommended by the podcast Worst Bestsellers, and my library happened to have e-copies of it, and they were good. I read them both together, one right after the other. They were good. They're not something that I really recommend. They're obviously a satire about the role of women and how women are treated. So basically, if you do not exhibit the exact role that men, the patriarch, the fathers, I want to say they're called. Yeah, the fathers want you to do, then you end up going to a different planet called Bitch Planet, which is just basically a big jail. And I don't know if it's a complete series, but basically it's kind of like ends up being like, I don't know if anyone's ever seen Death Race 2000, where the prisoners are able to race in order to get out of prison. But it's kind of like that, where like they can put together a team to play a game called I don't actually remember what it's called, but it's 2 tons of fun. So you have to, like, on each team, you can have as many players as you want as long as they weigh up to 2 tons. And then you battle each other. It was interesting. Not my favorite artwork, which is kind of where I definitely rate a graphic novel on artwork. And it was interesting, but just not something that, I don't know, not something that I really recommend, or I mean, it's fine. It's like Handmaid's Tale meets Death Race 2000. It was alright. Okay, so that's my 3-star reads. That was 2 of them. And then the other one that I read, also by Kelly Sue DeConnick, and also recommended by the podcast Worst Bestsellers, was Captain Marvel Volume 1. This was recommended because Captain Marvel goes to space and meets the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then she has to take her cat with her, and her cat is a flurkin, and there's like a very funny interaction between her and Rocket Raccoon over this flurkin. However, it turns out that takes place in Volume 2, and I didn't read that one yet. So Volume 1 is a 2-star just because it was fine. But I was like invested in the fact that she was going to be with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and she like sees them for a minute in this one, but she doesn't actually like do anything with them. So maybe Volume 2 will rate higher, but yeah, Volume 1 was 2 stars. It was fine. Yeah. All right. My final book was the Sookie Stackhouse book From Dead to Worse, number 8. And this is also a 2-star read. So I'm finally reading the rest of these books because I've had this series for so long and haven't finished it. And at this point, I just like want to get it done. What I will say is that I have found the perfect time to read this. And that is right after you go for a run and you're super sweaty and it's the afternoon and you just need some time to like drink a sweet tea and calm down your heart rate before you can go take a shower. That is the ideal time to read, like the epitome of summer reading. Maybe this is ideal too, like if you're on a beach or something, but this is just like, this is the perfect time for me. I have figured out where like I didn't hate it as much as I usually do. I was trying to figure out a couple things. One, how old is Sookie? I think she's 27 because she's very concerned about getting married, which like, I guess, yeah, that makes sense. But I don't know. I didn't get married till I was 30, so I mean, whatever. What is time at this point? And the other thing is that I was trying to figure out how long it's been since like the start of the series, because I feel like it's maybe a year, maybe not even that though, because like the events from a previous book took place a couple months before this one. And all of the action in this book, I swear, it's like, this is like a week, if that. It's very short. And all of the action, like the important things, where like it mentions on the back that there's a were war happening, and also like a vampire situation of brewing. They take place like one right after another. Literally, one night this happens, the next night the other thing happens. The end of the book. I mean, there's build up on either end, and I probably could have gone back and found the action, but I feel like the actual action of the novel takes place over maybe 20 pages. Like there's a big build up to it, and then another slow winding down on the other end. And she's very much like, oh, I don't know if I should have ever gotten involved in these werewolf situations. Obviously, she can't get out of it now. Like, her whole life is about this. But, I mean, yeah, well, you've packed a lot into 1 year, if that's what the case is. Okay, so anyway, once again, I found some excerpts that I don't think will spoil anything. Hopefully, if you listen to them, you're just like, oh, that's the case. But you don't really remember who's doing what. That's fine. Okay, so number 1 is Sookie talking about her own body. I examined myself in the full-length mirror, and it seemed impossible. I could have been so transformed in 20 minutes. From working barmaid in a white ruffled tux shirt and black trousers, to bridesmaid in a midnight blue dress, and 3 inches taller to boot. Hey, I looked great. The dress was a super color for me. The skirt was gently A-line. The short sleeves weren't too tight, and it wasn't low cut enough to look slutty. With my boobs, the slut factor kicks in if I'm not careful. Sookie. No, we don't use the term slut. You know? It's fine. You can wear whatever you want. No one gets to judge you for it. Except that she hears everyone's thoughts and she's like, everyone's talking about how they want to have a menage a trois with me. Like, everyone who meets Sookie wants to bang her because she's so attractive. So maybe it's not so much like she's always talking about herself, but she just like hears everyone else always talking about how hot she is, and then we have to hear it because we're in her head. I don't know, but it's a lot. And I feel like, so this is technically, okay, I'm trying to figure out this terminology because I thought it was like Mary Sue. But Mary Sue is not truly the case, because Mary Sue's only if you're in fan fiction where you're taking the world of one thing and you're putting yourself in that situation and whatever. So I guess it's not really Mary Sue, but it's just very much like you're picturing, like, you're writing yourself into a book, and you're writing yourself as like the most attractive character who like can do everything and is super attractive, or whatever it is that appeals to you, whatever you want. In this case, you're very attractive and everyone wants you. Maybe that's not the case because she's kind of dumb and she admits it. I don't know. I have problems. Here's another problematic section. Amelia made a gesture, and Calvin bent over to untie the red bandana that had made Tanya look like a small bandit. He pulled out another handkerchief, a clean white one, out of Tanya's mouth. She'd definitely been abducted with affection and consideration. Abducted with affection and consideration. The man brings her in over his shoulder like a bag of potatoes. She's been kidnapped with affection. What? And then, like, later she says, oh yeah, he clearly had a thing for her. Excuse me? He abducted her. I don't think so. No. Okay, another one. This one, I read it and I just was like, excuse me? What? What? I decided that Crystal had wanted to make her betrayal as emphatic as it could possibly be. She was saying, I'll have sex with someone else while I'm carrying your child. And he'll be older than you. And a different race from you. And he'll even work for you, twisting the knife in deeper with every layer. Okay, having a child, like doing it while you're carrying another man's child, that makes sense. That's twisting the knife. That he's older than you? I mean, maybe, I guess, considering who she's cheating on, that, like, yeah, that would make sense. A different race from you? I don't know who is being racist in this situation. I can't tell if it's Suki or if it's she thinks that the man that Crystal's cheating on is, I don't know, but it doesn't make sense. Like, why does that matter? What? Why? Just strike that part. He'll even work for you? I mean, again, like, no, I don't know. I feel like we just could have nixed that whole paragraph and been a little better off. So I didn't hate it as much as I recall hating it, but it was also not great, which is why it's a 2-star. I don't know. I think maybe these books might have just gone on too long. I find the same problem with like detective novels that like A is for Alibi and the Janet Ivanovich, whatever her name is, Stephanie Plum, where I'm just like, I don't want to stay in the brain of this character for 26 books, or I guess 25 because she died before she wrote Z, right? Or however many, I don't even know how many Janet Ivanovich has done. So, I don't know. All in all, 8 books. I read a lot of graphic novels. I mean, they count, but I ended up reading a lot of them for some reason. And 2,000 pages, so not as good as not as good as April at all. And I thought April was not very good, but I did much better in April. But, you know, June is a new month. I don't know, I guess I only did 2,200 pages in April. So, okay, not great, but I can do better. So, my June TBR is a little bit different, and so I'm just going to tack it on here because I think I'm going to do a vlog this month. Because I saw this really cool idea in a Facebook group of mine to pick 20 books out of your TBR pile, which I definitely have enough of those. And when you're finished reading one, you roll a d20 die, and that selects your next one for you, which I think is kind of fun. I don't have any more books that I need to get back anywhere anytime soon, so I can just read whatever I want. But Book Roast did share the video for the readathon happening at the end of this month. The 22nd through the 28th is the Hogsmeade readathon for the Owls. And so I will probably take part in that, and I might set a couple books aside from my TBR pile that will fit the prompts for that. But I've got only 2 more weeks of work, and so then I can kind of read a lot more. Yeah, so I read half of Vamped, which was on my May TBR. I read half of it last month, and so I'm going to finish that up, and then from there I will be using my die to decide what my next pick will be, and I will be putting together my TBR for Hogsmeade. Yeah, so May is over. This is like 2.5 months of quarantine, and slowly the state's starting to open up, for better or worse. Yeah. All right, so check in next week when I post my first vlog for June of whatever I end up getting through, and maybe my TBR for Hogsmeade. We'll see if I get that done. All right, thanks. Bye.